A topic you will see almost obsessively discussed in online discourse is sexual marketplace dynamics. And I actually think there is an obvious misunderstanding and silliness that's loaded into this that seems to be hitting the blind spot of so many people on both sides, depending on whether they're men or whether they're women. So the main topic that people constantly circle back to is this notion that women become less attractive after the age of 30. Now, that doesn't mean they will not attract anyone after they hit 30 as an arbitrary age. The word, obviously, that's operative here is less. They will be less attractive. They will attract less men. They will be less attractive to certain groups of men. The majority of men are the premise. Which means, even when you say men, you have to ask, what do they mean by men? In this case, the reason this is stinging, and it seems to be upsetting some women, is we're talking about men with the most options, therefore the ones who can be the ones who choose, who can be presented with a wide variety of women, and they will choose the ones that they want from those options. And oftentimes these men, who importantly are often going to be, because they are the high value men, the men that the women want to be attracted to them, they are going to often choose the younger woman. That's mainly the issue. But built within that is a very basic marketplace concept, supply and demand. Since there is a limited, finite, in fact quite small supply of the high value men with the most options, it's not that men as a general trend won't date, marry, love, or even want these women who have turned over 30. The key thing is, because the market, it means that actually a lot of men aren't these high value men who have all these options. And in fact, younger women, because of the way this dynamic plays on both sides, aren't as interested in this other swath of, you could say, 80, 90% of men, or whatever the breakdown ends up being. There are still loads of men out there who potentially are available. Now, yes, they themselves might initially, or as a natural bias, be in favour of the younger woman, the prettier one, whatever it might be, youth and beauty and all those concepts. And they might themselves want to date them, but that's irrelevant. They might not have the choice to. Therefore, what will be acceptable to them might still be the woman who is 31, 35, 40. It might be any age. It depends on who the man obviously is. So to me, the issue here becomes, it's a communication issue. People are talking past each other. Like, you'll see that no matter how many times people say in context or conversation with women this particular premise, you might see some women are going to come back with a very familiar refrain of like, oh, so in that case, women have no value after 30, or they have no value beyond their looks, or when their looks degrade, they just have no value whatsoever. And they'll keep repeating that it's the only value. This is the only thing that matters. These are the only scenario in which they will be wanted, desired, dated, loved, liked, etc. Now, I will say, I do think that actually betrays an insecurity in those women, which is, I mean, all I'll say is this: their go-to insult when they insult other women who tend to disagree with them or have a different perspective is to sort of imply, like, you are ugly, less attractive, you don't have a man, etc. So in some senses, I think this just plays into their own insecurity. But likewise, on the other side of the equation, men similarly are just talking past people and being talked past. So you're also not understanding, because quite frankly, when someone says to a woman, what sort of man do you go for? What sort of man do you want? If I had to reframe that, you're sort of saying, what is your ideal of a man? Or if we were to create a man right now, what would you want the requirements to be? And people are conflating that with the notion, again, that they will only date someone like that. The concept you have to understand is, this is like when someone writes their resume, right? They sex everything up as much as they can. And likewise, what's the other side of the game in the job marketplace dynamics? The boss, the person asking, the HR person who's putting out there a listing for a job, lists all this crazy stuff, must have 10 years experience, multiple degrees, excellent. Now that might sound like, well, no one's going to be like that who's going to apply. It's like, yeah, but the question is, what are they willing to accept? What is the nearest offer that will still be acceptable? Maybe they've made the ideal crazy and out there, but they just want to see, do you even vaguely match up in any area? And they still need to hire someone. Someone still needs to date and have relationships. Therefore, at some point, beyond your ideal, you're willing to accept something at a certain range. And often what we say, the range we're willing to to accept it. We might accept way, way lower. Like an obvious example for men is if it's last call and you're drunk in a bar. For women, maybe it's something like this scenario that maybe you're being fucked over by a bunch of fuck boys and the guys who seem like the pretty boy and the guy who's successful. So maybe you think, I just want something, I want security, or I want a guy who's just nice to me, or always interested in things I am. There's always different levels, and depending on where we are in our lives and our relationship history as to what we're willing to accept. So I actually think similarly, when guys hear this thing of like, oh, wait a minute, so he's going to be 6 feet tall, 6-figure income and a 6-inch dick. Oh, and he's also going to be kind and loves animals and emotionally available and respectful and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, obviously that's the ideal. That's the crazy dream of like what you wish or you want other people to think that you would want. That's actually quite a logical set of things that women might say they might want in a partner or their ideal partner or the man they want to date. The question is, when that man ain't available, he isn't there or he isn't interested in them, will they accept less? History, human history, and the fact that so many of us tell us they will on both sides of the equation. Of course, it's only if those guys are available, the ultimate dream, then they'll only go for them. But even then, it's not the case, by the way, that even if they go for those guys, they ain't necessarily going to get one, because actually those are the guys with so many options and who so many of the women want, that actually there's going to be a limited supply of them, and also those men may cheat on them, etc., and therefore it might not be a long-term establishable relationship, right? So of course they will settle for normal guys who do not match up to those metrics I just listed off, which are obviously extreme outliers / 99th percentile or whatever. So just understand the business concept and learn how to fucking negotiate, guys. Of course, both sides come in with a high demand. Of course, both sides want to give as little and get as much as possible. Yes, you don't just accept the initial framing and go, well, unless I can hit those terms, there's no point, there's nothing. There's wiggle room. Of course, there's wiggle room. And both sides are just talking past each other. It's just silliness.